Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rhiannon and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in March. Now, as you can see from the thumbnail, I did only manage to read 3 books in March. I was so busy last month, you guys. If you saw my latest reading vlog, you will know why. Essentially, I applied for a new job, got an interview, and ultimately got the job, which was really good, but then that meant that I had to make sure everything was in order for when I left my current job, including setting up a parents' evening, which took 2 of my nights. One was from 3:30 until 6, another was from 3:30 until I think it was 7:15 that I left school on the second night. So those things took up a lot of my energy, and then as well as that, my car actually broke down, which is obviously not ideal, but what made it even worse is that I of course then couldn't listen to audiobooks on my commute to and from work because I did have to get lifts from other people. So my reading in March really wasn't the best. However, I did just want to film this little wrap up anyway, mainly because if I don't post this one I won't want to post the next one, and I'm really trying to get into the habit of posting reviews and monthly wrap-ups for you guys, so I did want to sit down now and go through my thoughts on all of these books with you. So the first book that I finished in the month of March was Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which does look a bit different here because I have the UK tour edition, but that is the original cover that we all know and love. The main reason I decided to read this one actually was because I bought this book and also bought a ticket to an online book event with Cassandra Clare, and I mentioned in one of my reading vlogs that I was going to go and watch it. However, one of you guys commented letting me know that that book talk was full of spoilers for this last book, which I honestly don't get how you can do a book talk about a book that's only been out a week and include spoilers, especially as the link to the stream ran out after 2 weeks. So I did try to sit down and get through this at the start of March after that lovely subscriber reached out to me. However, I did not manage to complete it in time. I think I went over it by 2 days, so I did have to email Fane, who were the event organisers in the end, and ask them if there was any chance I could watch the stream. They very kindly then sent a link over so that I could watch this, which was fantastic of them, but essentially it was all a really mad time for me as I was in the middle of my interview prep. I was of course trying to finish this before the link to the stream ran out, and it was very stressful, to be honest with you. So that is definitely something that had an impact on my enjoyment of this book, I believe. I did end up giving this one 4 stars, which, having put the book down and left it for a bit, I do think is a good rating for me for this one. I had such an amazing time reading this book, but there were a lot of things that did let it down for me, which I will of course get into in a second without any spoilers. So as I mentioned, this is the 3rd book in the Last Hours trilogy, so I won't go into too much depth on what this individual book is about because it is the last book in a series. However, in the first one we follow our main character Cordelia Carstairs. Her and her family are looking to move to London in order to better reintegrate themselves into Shadowhunter society, as her father is facing a few problems at work. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Shadowhunters are half angels, half humans who are tasked with ridding the world of demons. They are very specially trained, they have a lot of gifts, but they can also go about as mundanes as well, which are just humans. Cordelia soon meets up with her childhood friends James and Lucy Herondale, and they get swept up into a world full of glittering balls, trips to the park, and Shadowhunter training. However, of course, this glamorous lifestyle doesn't last long because demon attacks start ravaging London, and these demons in particular seem a lot more advanced. They can walk through sunlight and they do seem almost impossible to kill, and so these young group of Shadowhunters find themselves dealing with something that is completely new to them, and as well as that, they have to face a lot of issues within themselves and their group of friends as well that ultimately leads them down a destructive path. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't really want to spoil it too much. This is part of a very expansive world that Cassandra Clare has written. If you guys have read Cassandra Clare's books or are familiar with the Shadowhunter world, you'll know that there are a few different series now that are out and set in that world, this being the most recent one. Now, the first and second books in this trilogy I gave 5 stars to. I absolutely loved them. However, when this came out and people started reading it, I started to see some more negative reviews towards this one. So I do think that in one of of my videos, I don't know if it was my TBR or what, I said that I was a little bit more apprehensive diving into this one, which I definitely was. Saying that though, the first kind of 100-200 pages were really good for me. I was sucked straight back into the world. I was involved in all the drama that was going on, which if you have read this book you'll know is a lot, and I was just rooting for all of these characters. However, the book then took a slightly different turn where nothing really happened for a couple of hundred pages and then everything happened all at once. Saying that though, I definitely feel like we didn't get enough resolution and depth into what was actually going on. I won't say any names, but there was a death in this that definitely affected me. However, I do feel like it was thrown in there for shock factor. It didn't necessarily add anything to the plot because the characters didn't seem to be too bothered. It was very quickly brushed over and really wasn't mentioned a lot after that, which is something that struck me as really odd. And when I went to watch the stream, someone actually asked that of Cassandra Clare, like, why didn't you give that character a proper send-off and why didn't we see the characters go through the grieving process? And she essentially brushed it off and said that's how it's meant to be, so tough, which really got me. I don't know, it just sat the wrong way with me. So I think little things like that would have made more of an impact and would have made more of a difference here. I think other things should have been cut so that that could have been put in. I'm not an editor, I'm not a writer, these are just my personal opinions. However, I do feel like there was a disconnect at some points between certain characters and what was actually going on. As well as that, the ending of the book, whilst I did enjoy it in a way, I feel like one, it was very rushed, and two, it was very kind of nicey-nicey. It was definitely better than the ending of Queen of Shadows, I want to say is the book, which is the last book in the Dark Artifices trilogy. That was definitely far-fetched. However, this seemed a lot more grounded and plausible, but again, it didn't give me everything that I wanted. And so unfortunately this book wasn't the best that I've read from Cassandra Clare. I still had a really good time with it, but I think that all these different factors and the fact that I was on a bit of a time crunch to read it just affected my enjoyment a little bit, and so I just didn't love it as much as I thought I would. Saying that though, it is a solid trilogy. I loved the first two books, didn't love this one as much, and I'm very excited now to dive into the Wicked Powers trilogy, which is going to be the next Cassandra Clare series. So I didn't love this book, but I didn't hate it. It was kind of middle of the road, but I think because I have such an attachment to these characters, that's why I ended up giving it the higher rating of 4 stars rather than a 3. Then the next book that I read was Rebel Spring by Morgan Rhodes. This is the second book in the Fallen Kingdom series by that author, and this is another book that I gave 4 stars. You'll be sick of hearing me talk about this series in a while, you guys, but I'm having such a good time reading these books. I was so tempted to pick up the third book in this series as soon as I finished this one. However, I did have to hold off to finish the last book that I read in March, which I will of course go into in a minute. But this is a YA fantasy that is often compared to a Game of Thrones. That is mainly because of the violence in these books. Other than that, the plots are quite different. So in this one, we follow our 4 main characters, Cleo, Jonas, Lucia and Magnus, and they are essentially facing an oncoming war in which they will have to make morally difficult decisions where they can either aid in the war effort or stand against it. With there being a war involved, of course, there is also a lot of politics. We have 3 kingdoms where one is flourishing above the others, and so the other 2 are trying to conquer that kingdom, and it all has to be done quite strategically, of course. As well as that though, we also have a subplot which is the magic in this world. Now the name for this is Elementia, which as you can imagine refers to the 4 elements, which are earth, fire, water and air. Essentially we have people called Watchers in here who are pretty much immortal. However, the magic that they live off of is dying, and so they can leave the sanctuary in hawk form where they essentially watch everything that's going on in the outside world in order to find something that is called the Kindred, which is the source of all of their magic. When rumours of a sorceress emerge who can apparently wield all 4 elements, the Watchers are of course very intrigued, and it kind of turns into a race against time between them finding it and the leaders of the human race finding it. I'm not going to say too much more about that because I don't want to spoil anything, but this is such an amazing fantasy series. I have flown through both books. I'm getting quite quite attached to them as well, which is something that I haven't felt in a while. This is such a solid YA fantasy series, and I'm quite sad actually that I didn't read it at the time that these came out, because I feel like this would have become my whole identity. It would have been something that had stuck with me all these years. However, that didn't happen, but I'm so glad to be reading them now. They do definitely read a little bit young, especially when it comes to the romances throughout these books. And I say romances because there are a few. Every single character loves every single other character in this series. It's very hard to keep up with it all, and between everything that's going on, you do tend to forget who likes who and who is now seeing who and whatever, which is my only gripe with this book, and it's why I didn't give it 5 stars, because one minute a character was pining over one character and then the other minute she's like, oh no, I love this character or whatever. So that is definitely something that took me out of the story. However, the plot, the magic system, the politics in this are just fantastic. It's definitely not the best written book ever, it's definitely not the most intricate book ever written, but for me at this current point, it's what I need and it's what I'm enjoying. So I'm very happy to have read this one. I have now started book 3 as well, so you will see that one in my April wrap up, and who knows, I might even carry on with the rest of the books as well. And then the last book that I read last month is The Blade Itself by Jo Abercrombie, which does actually still have my bookmark in, so I do need to take that out. I am actually reading all of the books in Jo Abercrombie's First Law series as part of the Catch Up Book Club, which if you don't know is an adult high fantasy book club which is hosted by Becca from Becca and the Books here on YouTube. She is the one that has also made these gorgeous bookmarks, so I will try and show you quickly, but it says Catch Up Book Club on one side and Firstlawalong on the next. I will of course leave a link to Becca's shop down below for you guys. She is the owner of Grace and Honey, where she sells a bunch of different things such as candles, bookmarks, and a few other bits and bobs as well. So if you would like to support her and check out her items, then definitely click the link below. But getting back on track, as I mentioned, I am reading this as part of the book club. If you guys have been following me for a while, you'll know that we read the Realm of the Elderlings books by Robin Hobb for the last round of the Catch Up Book Club, which took, I think, 2.5 years, because this is a 16 book series. As you can see, there are a ton of books, and I think that this series is a 10 book long series, so I definitely have a long way to go, but the first hurdle is out of the way now. It is done. I've heard so many people say that this first book isn't really that great and it only gets better from here, and I'm so glad to hear that, because I give this book 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. However, it is definitely lacking plot for me, which is why I couldn't give it that full 5 stars. I don't know whether to read you the synopsis of this one or whether to try and tell you guys what it is about, because as I mentioned, nothing really happens in this book. It is all essentially character development and moving different characters from one place to the next in order for the series to continue and for the events of the next few books to happen. So I will just go for the synopsis because it's here. It says, Logan Ninefingers, infamous barbarian, has finally run out of luck. Caught up in one few too many, he's about to become a dead barbarian, leaving nothing behind but bad songs and dead friends. Giselle Dunluther, paragon of selfishness, has nothing more dangerous in mind than winning glory in the fencing circle. But war is brewing, and on the battlefields of the frozen north, they fight by altogether bloodier rules. Inquisitor Glockter, crippled turned torturer, would like little more than seeing Giselle come home in a box. But then he hates everyone. Cutting treason out of the heart of the Union, one confession at a time, leaves little room for friendships, and his latest trail of corpses could lead straight to the rotten heart of the government, if he can just stay alive long enough to follow it. That doesn't really give you too much away, and as I mentioned, there's not much to give away, I'd say, in this first book. I would highly recommend it. I really did enjoy listening to this. I did consume this via audiobook, and I feel like that is definitely the way to go with this series. It's how I consumed The Realm of the Elderlings as well. I don't know why, but I seem to retain so much more information by listening to audiobooks rather than reading the books physically. I did kind of jump between the two a little bit. I sat down and read some of this physically whilst listening to the audiobook as well, and that definitely helped. But this is definitely more of a character-driven book. I love all of the characters, you guys. I think my favourite is Logan. He is a barbarian, as the synopsis said, but he's also like a gentle giant, and he kind of reminds me from Lenny from Of Mice and Men. If you guys have read that book by John Steinbeck, you'll know what I mean. He is a gentle giant, but there is also a darkness in there as well, and that is mainly from a source of magic that we haven't really gotten a lot of information about yet. So I'm so interested to see where this goes. There is a magi in here who is kind of like a Gandalf figure. He is a wizard who is a little bit past his prime. No no one really pays him any heed until he proves them wrong and shoves the truth in their face essentially. So he is another character that I'm really enjoying. He's called Baez. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. We have Jazal, who I didn't really like at the start of the book, but I have grown to like him more as the book's gone on. I feel like at the start of the book he was very pompous, selfish, and very arrogant, and I think as the series goes on he is really going to get some character development and is going to grow as a person. And then Glokta as well is a really interesting character because he was actually tortured. He was captured whilst fighting in a war and was held in the dungeons and was tortured for I don't know how long actually, but a long time. But now he has come back and he is a torturer for the king, which doesn't make sense to me. I feel like you'd have way too much trauma and PTSD to do that to someone when it's already been done to you. I don't know, that just didn't sit right with me. But yeah, he is a cripple because of the torture that he received, and now his job is to torture other people for information as well. So his character is really interesting. You see his inner dialogue and you see that he is quite a conflicted person. Of course there is a lot of trauma in there. There's a lot of abandonment issues that he does have as well, and he does just have a really hard time trusting people, and he has a hard time living his life essentially because of what he's gone through. So he is another interesting character, but I'm not sure where he's gonna go or what role he's gonna have to play. Don't have too many theories on it at the minute. I have watched the live show discussion of this that was filmed for the Catch Up Book Club, and it was really interesting hearing everyone's thoughts. I think we all have pretty similar opinions on this first book, and I should definitely have more to say as the series go on. But as a first book in a new adult fantasy series, this is definitely a strong one. It's a bit of a different one because it's more focused on the characters rather than the plot. I feel like with the first book in the realm of the Elderlings, which was Assassin's Apprentice, it took me about 300 pages to actually know what was going on and to actually get my head around the world and the magic and things like that. However, with this one I just dove straight in and I was immersed in the world because of the focus on the characters rather than what was going on around them. So we'll see what happens with the rest of these books. I do have books 2 and 3 to hand, so I'm ready to go. This was such a good one. Not a 5-star read as I mentioned because of the lack of plot, but as the series progresses I feel like I'm gonna love it more and more. I already have attachments to these characters and I don't want to see anything bad happen to them, which I know is a false hope because this is a grimdark adult fantasy. It's going to wreck me, I feel like, by the end of it, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But all in all, I had a really good time listening to it. Would highly recommend the audiobook, and I think I'm gonna listen to the rest of these books on audio as well. So there we have it, guys. I'm so sorry that this is a small stack. I feel like I've actually talked quite a bit about each and every single book though, so hopefully you've had an insight into my thoughts whilst reading these. If you do want to hear my thoughts whilst reading these in real time, I will leave my latest reading vlog linked up above and down below for you guys. But they were all 4-star reads from me this month. Not the biggest stack, but I enjoyed each and every single one. I am definitely planning on reading a lot more in April, so that wrap up should be substantial, and considering the stress I felt all of last month, seeing it put like this isn't actually too bad for me, I don't think. If you have made it this far through into the video and would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and leave me a weapon emoji of your choice. All of these books are pretty violent. There are a lot of battle scenes in each and every single one, and I have asked for swords quite a few times, I think, so take creative liberty with the emoji and give me any sort of weapon of your choice. I do say it all the time, but seeing you guys comment the emoji of the video truly does mean the world to me. It blows me away that you guys watch these videos all the way through. So if you don't have anything in particular that you would like to say, but you would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and do that now. As well as that, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. But that is it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!